Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Lehigh University Sports Broadcasting Podcast. It's been a while. We've all just returned to campus for the fall semester of 2023. So we are ready to be back producing podcasts for you guys. And today we're going to be doing the NFL season podcast. Join with me today. We have a familiar face, Jayden from last year. Welcome back. And a new face, Jackson, who is an incoming freshman. We do have a lot of new freshmen this year, which is great for the club. So really excited for you guys to hear their thoughts on the NFL season. And yeah, that's going to be the focus of this podcast is the upcoming season. Obviously, we already had the opener last night, Chiefs versus Lions. Kadarius Toney is a Giants fan. Love to see him mess up all the time. But pretty good game, but obviously doesn't really impact our predictions at all. So yeah, so we are going to start by talking about the AFC East. We're going to go division by division. So we're going to start with the AFC East, and I'll start with you, Jackson. Who do you think is going to win the division, and what do you think are your hot takes for this division?
I'm going pretty chalk with this pick. I got Bills winning this division. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. I mean, it's just a winning duo. They've been good for the past couple of years. They'll keep going. I think for my hot takes that this is the year New England really takes a step back. I don't think there's some kind of savior. Mac Jones isn't the guy, just not really going to be great. I think Belichick might resign at the end.
Interesting. Okay. I've heard a lot of people be out on the Patriots this year. I'll let you throw in your thoughts too, Jayden, on this division.
Yeah, so I agree with Jackson. I think the Bills are going to win it. But I don't agree with them with the Patriots take. I think Belichick always finds a way to keep them decent no matter what the roster's looking like. And I think the Jets are going to finish with 10 wins, and I think the Dolphins are actually going to finish last in this division. The Dolphins have like a really tough schedule. And even though they got Ramsey and they're getting Tua back, I think their schedule's too tough. I think they're going to have a losing record in the East, and I think they're going to finish 8-9. And I have the Bills and Jets making the playoffs in this division.
Yeah, I feel like most of the AFC predictions for the AFC East has been mostly chalk. And mine is mostly chalk. I have like one thing with the AFC East. I don't know if this is me just being a Giants fan, but I have a hunch that the Jets are going to miss the playoffs. Look, trading for Aaron Rodgers is totally the right move. I mean, they didn't really have any other choice. I mean, they had Jayden, the Jets fan. They had to do it, and it's a good move, and it makes the team better. But it's just like the Jets have so much hype around them when they've done nothing for the past 10 years. I'm not rooting against them. Like, I could totally see a path where they make the playoffs, maybe win a few playoff games. But you're coming off of Aaron Rodgers' worst season. Now, obviously, he's still Aaron Rodgers. I think they still have a winning record. I have them at 9-8. But I think the teams like Buffalo, I think Buffalo is still miles ahead of them. I have them 12-5 winning the division. I have Miami as a wild card at 10-7. And my hot take is the whole division finishes above 500. And a lot of people are probably going to give me slack for that. But I feel like this division always – all four of these teams are competitive. We saw it last year. We saw it. Okay, we didn't really see it the year before because the Jets weren't that good the year before. But I mean, the Patriots, they're kind of getting slept on. They have some nice players. They're obviously not anything special, but I think they're getting slept on really. So yeah, for the AFC North now, I'm going to start off here for the AFC North. I think Cincinnati is easily, or maybe not easily, but I think that they're going to win this division. I really like Cincinnati this year. They finally got some offensive linemen. They got Orlando Brown. They did lose a couple of key defenders, but I'm not really too worried about their defense. I'm more worried about their offensive line, which got better. I think Baltimore gets a wild card spot, and I think Cleveland and Pittsburgh are both at around 500. And my hot take is to Mike Tomlin's 500 or above streak ends. I think Pittsburgh goes 8-9. And so I'll throw it back to Jackson for his thoughts on this division.
Yeah, so as a proud Ravens fan, I have us winning that division. Kind of flip-flop with you in the Bengals pick. I think Lamar takes yet another step. I think he's got that MVP. He's coming back for it. revamped offense totally. I still have the Bengals finishing second with a wild card. I think Pittsburgh and Cleveland are both going to have a chance to make the playoffs, but like at the end of the year, I think they're just going to take each other out. Each going to like win some, lose some games. And kind of my hotter take is that this is the last year of Kevin Stefanski on the Browns. I think the Browns are, average, and maybe he doesn't deserve to get fired, but they're an impatient team. They'll send him packing and try something new.
Yeah, I actually agree with you with Stefanski. If the Browns do not have a good year, I think he could be gone, regardless of the fact that this guy was coach of the year in 2020. And I could see, I honestly don't think that's that hot of a take to say the Ravens could win the division. I'm a Lamar believer. I still think Cincinnati's the better team. But Jayden, I'll throw it to you, and then we'll move on to the AFC South.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Nick, about Lamar. I think he's really good, and I'll ask you guys a question at the end of my segment here. But yeah, I also have the Bengals winning it at 12-5. I have the Ravens one back at 11-6. But I think if Lamar plays all 17 games, the Ravens could win this division. They've had a really good record with Lamar since he's come into the league, and I do see the Steelers keeping that streak alive. Most of the teams in this division do have kind of an easy schedule. And I'll ask you guys a question here. In 70 games that Lamar has played with the Ravens, do you know what the record is with him being the quarterback? I mean, it's a tough question,
I
but
would guess, like high 40s in wins, like 47, 48.
that's
think
yeah, that's hey, go ahead, Jackson.
I was gonna say it was better. I was gonna say like 54 or so.
Um, well, Nick was a little closer, 49-21,
That
which is
that's very
which
good.
is yeah. So if he plays all 17 games, I can definitely see him winning the division.
Yeah, and I mean they've never had better weapons than they have now. Obviously, still, I mean they still could get a lot better, but they've never had better weapons for him. Moving to the AFC South, Jayden, I'm gonna throw this right back at you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So I have the Jaguars winning the division. I have them finishing 11-6. I liked what they did last year. And then this year, they added Calvin Ridley. And they still have, ETN and Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram as other targets for Lawrence. I'm a big Lawrence believer. And my hot take is that I think the Jaguars will finish with a top five offense this year. As I said, I'm a big Lawrence fan. They got Calvin Ridley and they're really playing well towards the end of last year. So I see them taking that momentum into this year. And also, last thing, they have a really easy schedule. I mean, the Texans and the Colts suck. Like I have them winning 5 and 4 games respectively. So I just think the Jaguars will have a good year and win this division.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, my takes are pretty much the same. I have Jacksonville winning the division. I will say I'm a little lower on Jacksonville than some people. I only have them winning 9 games. They haven't proved it. They haven't proven to me that they can have like a really strong regular season. They're obviously the favorite in the AFC South. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to progress, but I think a few things can regress a little on that team. Still, obviously, the clear favorite for the division. I actually am higher on Tennessee than a lot of people. I think that they're going to be competitive all year, but I still think that they come up just short. I think Jacksonville goes 9-8, Tennessee 8-9, and then I have Houston at 6-11, and Indianapolis 5-12. But yeah, I mean, I'll throw it to you, Jackson. But we're all pretty much similar. We all pretty much have similar takes on this division.
Yeah, I mean, still gonna keep Jacksonville in the one spot. I like Jayden. Like I love Lawrence. I think he's got so much still in him that we haven't seen yet, and the addition of Ridley and they still have ETN and all. I wouldn't be surprised if they start off a little slow, just because some teams are gonna get tape on them. I'm so low on Indy this year. I know people expect them to be bad. I think they're gonna be really bad. Just without Taylor, Richardson has tons of talent. Don't know if he's completely ready yet. I think it's going to be a pretty bad show to watch. But I think that Will Anderson on the Texans is somehow not being talked about, despite being like one of the top prospects in the draft. I think he's going to be absolutely electric this year.
Yeah, that's interesting you bring up Will Anderson because now that you're saying it, I've realized no one's really talking about him, which is kind of crazy because I mean he was the number 3 pick. But yeah. So moving to the AFC West, Jackson, I got you up again. Who do you think is going to win the division? Any hot takes?
Um, chalk Kansas City. I know they lost last night, but I feel like that's just going to inspire them to do more. Losing on prime time, they're just going to bounce back better. Um, it's Mahomes and Reed. It's a winning combo. I got the Chargers getting a wild card spot. I think Wilson will bounce back a bit with Sean Payton, but I think Las Vegas is just not going to be good. And I think Josh McDaniels is going to get fired. Just there's just not enough talent on that team, I don't think. And there's too much. It's the Raiders. They have too much going on always. That's just going to shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially with the whole Chandler Jones saga that just started up a couple days ago. It always seems like the Raiders just have some off the field issues, which is such a shame because they've had such talented rosters. Not this year though. So Jayden, I'll let you go next, and then I'll wrap up the AFC.
Yeah. So I think it's an easy division for the Chiefs, even though they lost yesterday. Um, I just don't really see any of these teams really giving them too much trouble. The Chargers are pretty talented, but they just never really seem to win too many games, especially the last couple years. Um, and I honestly don't really think the Broncos will be that much better this year than they were last year. Maybe a little bit better. I have them winning 7 games. I think Sean Payton will help a little bit, but they scored the least amount of points per game last year. They scored like under 17 a game. And I don't think bringing in Sean Payton will just bring that up to like the 20s, like just like that. So I don't see him winning too many games, even though I do hear a lot of people saying that Payton might lead into like, 8 or 9 wins. I just don't really see it happening.
Yeah, Broncos country was definitely not riding last year. For me, I am a little higher on the Broncos than you, Jayden. I think they do get to 8 and 9. I don't think they're ever going to be a serious playoff contender. But when I looked at that team last year and I saw the stat where I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was like somewhere between 15 and 18 points, where if there was a stat where in their first 10 games, if they averaged like 18 points per game, I don't remember the exact number, of course, they would have been 9-1. 9-1. That's how good their offense. That's how good their defense was. They have a really good defense. And I don't think they're going to be insane. I don't think they're going to be anything special on offense. But I think Sean Payton is going to help them out and make them not be putrid. Not going to be enough to make the playoffs, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was last year. Everything else is pretty much chalk. Kansas City, I have 13-4, Chargers 10-7, and Vegas 6-11. So we are going to move to the NFC now with the NFC East. And I'll start off, and I just got to say this right now. I'm a Giants fan. I'm a huge Giants fan. So it hurts me to say that I think the Eagles are going to win the division again. I do think they're going to regress. I think they're going to go 11-6 this year. I think Dallas is a little overrated too. I think they're going to go 10-7. I have the Giants going 10-7, and then I have Washington at 8-9. And my hot takes are Philly only wins 11 and Dallas only wins 10. But I'm going to try not to keep my bias in this prediction. I think it's a relatively fair prediction. I don't think there's anything too crazy with my prediction. But Jackson, I'll let you go next for the NFC East.
So similarly, I got Philly and Dallas top of this division. I think Philly, I got them at 12-5, so 1 win better than you. I think playing the first place in division schedule be a bit tougher for them, but that defensive line is just so good. Defense as a whole. I actually really like the Commanders this year. For kind of a similar reason. I think that Chase Young is going to be better than expected. I'm really interested in seeing if Sam Howell can, be a starting quarterback. But my hot take is really having the Giants at 8-9. I think that Daniel Jones is going to go back to being Daniel Jones, and we're going to laugh at the contract, and it's going to be great, and we're going to wonder why they paid him and not Saquon Barkley. It's just tradition.
All right, look, 8-9 for the Giants isn't that unfair. It's not that unfair. I can't hate you on that, but I got to defend my quarterback. We're going to come back. We're going to come back to this at the end of the season, and Daniel Jones's contract is going to look like he was underpaid. Just watch, because just based off the quarterback market, there are a bunch of guys who are due for contracts, and Daniel Jones at the end of the season is going to be like the 15th, 16th highest paid quarterback. And you always pay a quarterback over a running back. So I disagree with you there. But I think 8-9 isn't that much of a hot take. And that's me as a Giants fan saying that too. But Jayden, I'll let you wrap up this division and then we'll move to the NFC North.
Right. So yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, quarterbacks over running backs. But I don't know if this is gonna look like they underpaid him at the end of the year. 40 mil a year is a good amount, you know. Anyway, so I have the Giants finishing 9-8, which is kind of in between what you guys were saying. They kind of have a tough start to the schedule. They play some good teams, but I think they'll finish pretty strong. I think the Eagles will regress a little bit. They lost Javon Hargrave. And you know, the Super Bowl hangover is a little bit of a thing. And I actually have the Cowboys winning this division, being 12-5. I think they're going to tie with the Eagles at 12-5, but I think the Cowboys will finish 5-1 in division play. They just tend to do really well against their own division. And you know, people like to hate on the Cowboys, and I'm not a Cowboy fan, but I feel like they always tend to be there. Now, do they win in the playoffs a lot? Not really, but they do tend to win a lot of games in the regular season. So I do have them winning this division. And I don't think the Commanders are going to be great. I think their defense might take a little bit of a step back. So yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point with the Cowboys. I do think they're a very good regular season team. Certainly not a good playoff team. But we're gonna move to the NFC North now. This is a very interesting division, in my opinion. A lot of turnover, a lot of choices that us predictors have to make with this division. So I'll start with you, Jackson. What do you think?
I got the Vikings winning this division at a 10-7. I think we're kind of underrating them a bit. Just you know, I mean, I'm not a huge Kirk Cousins fan, but he does win some games. You give Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson. I really like Jordan Addison coming out of the draft. I think that's going to be a nice, you know, trio. And the other thing is that I feel like they're a more experienced team than the Lions, who I know a lot of people are picking. I have them second, 9-8. I know they won last night, but I'm not sure they were, you know, spectacular. And then I have the Packers 6-11, Bears 4-13. I do think there's a chance the Bears are better than we expect. I think the Justin Fields DJ Moore connection could be there. But I guess my hotter take, I'm not sure if it's that hot, but I think Jordan Love is actually going to be good. I think he might struggle early on, but I think as the season progresses, I think we're kind of look at him and say, yeah, okay, we see why the Packers drafted him and why they're comfortable starting him. I think he has that potential.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really exciting to see Jordan Love finally get the starting role after Aaron Rodgers has been the Packers quarterback for my entire life, all of our entire lives. But yeah, I mean, solid takes right there. I agree with most of them. Jayden, I'll let you go next, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts.
Yeah, so I think the Lions are going to win this division. Decently comfortably, actually. The Vikings, I thought were a bit of a fluke last year. They were 11-0 in one-score games, which is crazy. I mean, they're crazy clutch, but I just don't really see that happening again. I mean, you know, teams that are really good in one-score games one year sometimes aren't good the next year, and obviously they're not going to do better than 11-0. And I do think it's the Lions' time. I think they got good weapons around Goff. They got a really good system. They lost Jamal Williams, but you know, David Montgomery is, you know, similar. They got Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going to add to that offense. And they had a really good win yesterday, obviously. But mainly the reason why I see the Lions winning is because I don't really think the Vikings are going to be that good. I have them actually having a losing record. And I do think the Bears will improve a little bit. I think they're going to win 7 or 8 games this year. They got a relatively easy schedule, and I do agree with Jackson that DJ Moore to or Fields to DJ Moore connection will be pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you with the Vikings. I don't think they're going to be below 500, but I think that they're going to regress. I mean, that season they had last year was so unsustainable. I mean, you can't knock them for it. I mean, they won when they needed to, but it was just so unsustainable. And you saw it when my Giants beat them in the playoffs. But I think Minnesota actually wins the division. I think Detroit gets a wild card. I'm not as high on Green Bay and Chicago. I think Green Bay, I kind of agree with you, Jackson. I think Jordan Love is going to start off kind of slow, and then at the end of the year, they might pick up a couple wins. But I think that defense is getting old. It's still good, but it's getting older. I'm not that high on any of the weapons that they have. I mean, really just Christian Watson. They do have Aaron Jones, of course, but I don't know. He's more of a running back. He can't catch some passes too. But I think Chicago, I I'm still worried about Chicago. I think Justin Fields is going to do better. But that defense, I don't know. That offensive line, I'm really concerned for Justin Fields. He was running around the field so much last year. So I have Chicago at 4-13. I could see them having a couple more wins. And my hot take is nobody wins 10 games or more in this division. I think Minnesota and Detroit both win 9 and both make the playoffs. So we are going to move to the NFC South now. We got 2 more divisions, and then we're going to talk about the playoffs. I'll start from the NFC South. I like the Saints for this division. I will say, though, my hot take for this division is another pretty similar one. I think nobody finishes above 500 again for 2 years in a row. Now, look, the Saints, these guys all have easier schedules because they're going to be playing each other and they're going to be beating up against each other. But if you look at these guys last year, New Orleans, Tampa, even with Tom Brady, Atlanta, Carolina, these guys just could not handle teams outside of their division. Most of the wins were from inside the division. I think New Orleans goes 8-9. I think Atlanta 7-10, Carolina 7-10, and Tampa Bay 5-12. But I'm not high on anyone in this division. The highest I am on is New Orleans. I think Derek Carr is an improvement from Andy Dalton for sure, but not a huge improvement. I would say like 1, maybe 2 wins, and that's where I have them at 8-9. I think whoever wins this division is a first round exit. And Jayden, I'll let you go next for this division.
Right. I agree with that first round exit part. I think whoever wins is going to be a first round exit, but I think I'm a little higher on the Saints than you are. I think that they're going to win 11 games this year. Obviously, you said their division's not good. I can see them probably finishing 5-1 in this division. I mean, the Bucks, like, come on. I mean, they suck. And the Falcons, like, they might not be terrible. I have them winning 7 or 8 games, but again, I think the Saints could sweep that head to head. And, you did say that they lost a lot of games to, teams not in their division, but I think I counted, at least 11 or 12 wins that I can give the Saints. And some of those were coming against teams not in their division because they do have some, good matchups outside of their division foes. So yeah, that's my bold prediction. I think the Saints are going to win at least 11 games.
That's a pretty bold prediction. We all have some bold predictions. It's pretty bold. 11 games is interesting. I don't think it's a horrible take just because of the division that they're in. And if you think that they're going to beat up on everyone in their division, then I could see it. I just disagree. Jackson, I'll let you go next, and then we'll wrap up with the NFC West.
Similarly, I got Saints winning division, only 9-8. I think the Falcons will actually give them a run for their money. I really like the Falcons' young offense. Desmond Ridder, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and then Kyle Pitts. I think, that core, maybe not this season, but for the foreseeable future, I think that's something to keep an eye on. But I still have the Saints winning. I think this division's, like we said, it's not that good, but I think it's really weird. They all have weird quarterback situations. The Saints have Derek Carr and Jameis Winston. The Falcons are riding with Desmond Ridder. Panthers have new Bryce Young, and the Bucks. I don't Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. It like hurts me to see that quarterback room. And then I already said my hot take, but I think the Falcons' young offense is just going to be really good.
Yeah, I actually agree with you with the Falcons. I'm just not that high on Desmond Ridder. He has to prove to me that he can actually play in the NFL before I predict the Falcons to have like a winning record. But I do think the Falcons are going to improve this year for sure. I mean, Jesse Bates was a great signing too that I didn't even mention. But yeah, so for the NFC West, the last division of the podcast, and then we're going to go to our playoff predictions. Jayden, I'll let you start out here. What are your takes?
Yeah, so I think the Niners are going to dominate here. Um, it's just hard for me to see anyone else giving them a problem here. I think the Niners are stacked. I think they got the best roster in the league. They're stacked on both sides of the ball. Um, they signed Javon Hargrave. He had 11 sacks for the Eagles last year and was a big part of that defense. And the Niners had the best defense in the league last year. They allowed like 16 points a game, which is crazy. And then they're also loaded on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, they got McCaffrey, they got Debo, Ayuk. I mean, they just got a really great team. And I see them winning 15 games this year and being having the best record in the league.
Wow, 15. I'm very high on San Francisco. I'm sure a lot of people are. 15 is pretty bold. I mean, I could see it happening. I mean, they have arguably outside of quarterback, not a knock on Brock Purdy, but outside of quarterback, their roster is probably the best in the NFL. So I could see that happening. Jackson, I'll let you go next for this division, and then I'll wrap it up.
Yeah, so I have the Niners winning the division. Only 12-5 though. I have winning 15 games a lot. I think that I think the reason they're not going to is they have had some really bad injury luck, and they have some players who have injury history. So I think they might, lose a game or two because of that. I do think the Rams are going to bounce back. I have them at 9-8. I think Matt Stafford, Sean McVay is a winning combo, and you throw in Aaron Donald and you win a couple games. And my hot take, while I have the Cardinals finishing 4-13, I think there'll be one game this year where Kyler Murray just plays like out of his mind, like just puts up absurd points, fantasy points. He's going crazy. It's not going to be enough to like make the Cardinals great, but I think there will be one game where Kyler Murray is spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, that's not necessarily too hot of a take. I feel like Kyler Murray has that every year. He has that one game where he just absolutely balls out. Yeah, for me, I agree with you for pretty much everything. I will say one thing though. I get a lot of slack when I say this. I think Seattle is the most overrated team in the league this year. I see people making them 11-6, 12-5. They're going to go deep into the playoffs. They have a young team, a great coach. They finally got, or not finally got, but they have a good quarterback. Yada yada yada. Watch out for them to win the division. Just stop. Let's hold it back for a second. Geno Smith had a great season. Not a knock against him. Geno Smith is 34 years old. He could easily regress. That was his best year. He's not going to have a better year than that. Still could be a good quarterback for sure. There's that. Tyler Lockett is old. I know they drafted JSN out of Ohio State, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Look, they have a good team. They're just not that good. I think they're due for regression. I think they played above their heads last year. I think Geno played above his head last year. And I think their defense, they drafted Witherspoon. What else did they do? I mean, they did add a Bobby Wagner, but he's also really old. What other moves did they make? Like, they didn't really make any big moves. They made one big move, which was Bobby Wagner, who is getting up there in age, still very good, but getting up there in age. I don't want to say anti-Seattle. I think that they're overrated. I still think that they're going to be 9-8. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I would much rather take Giants over Seattle. I would much rather take Dallas over Seattle, obviously. I even consider the Rams over Seattle. I think the Rams are going to bounce back. I agree with you, Jackson. I don't think they have enough star power to make the playoffs. I think they go 8-9. And I have Arizona going 3-14. That team is just trash. So yeah, ending off this podcast, we are going to talk about our playoff divisions. So we're going to be talking about who we think is going to win the AFC and the NFC in the Super Bowl. Jackson, I'll let you go first.
All right. I know people might say I'm biased, but I do have the Ravens being the Chiefs. I think they just have the makings of a Super Bowl team. Lamar. I love Lamar. I think he's just going to thrive in this new offense. He's going to have more space to work with. I think you guys are slightly underrating the Ravens' new offensive pickups. I think Odell and Zay Flowers, they look great in training camp. You throw in Rashad Bateman. I think and Mark Andrews, like no one's been talking about Mark Andrews. I think that is a great offense. They have the best middle linebackers in the league. I think there is just a litany of star power across the team, and John Harbaugh is a great coach. In the NFC, I have Niners beating Eagles in a great revenge game. That's like, we're going to talk about it for a while. And then I have the Ravens being the Niners in the Super Bowl because John Harbaugh is a great big game coach.
Yeah, I mean, I'm high on the Ravens. Obviously, it's a little biased to think that the Ravens are gonna win the Super Bowl. They could, like, certainly have a chance. But predicting that is a little biased. But I have a little bias in my prediction, which we'll get to after I throw this to Jayden first.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's tough for the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't think they're the best team in their division, but yeah. So I have, let's see, I got the Niners in the NFC. As I said before, I think they're loaded. They got a great team. Um, and I have them beating the Cowboys. Um, the Cowboys don't really play that well in the playoffs, but I think this year they'll get to the NFC Championship game, and the Niners will beat them for the third year in a row. And then in the AFC, I got the Bengals beating the Chiefs. I think the Bengals definitely improved this year. Nick mentioned the Orlando Brown signing. I think that was a big one. And I think the Chiefs regressed a little bit. They really don't have any receivers, and I think that was showed that showed last night when they lost to Detroit. So many drop passes, a drop pass leading to an interception, just not enough weapons on offense, even though they got Mahomes. So I got the Bengals beating the Chiefs in a little revenge game in the AFC Championship this year, and then I got the Niners beating the Bengals. The Niners have been so close for so long this year. Um, or I'm sorry, not this year, just in the past couple years. And so have the Bengals in a sense. But I think this is the Niners' year. As I said, they're loaded on both sides of the ball. They improved. And even though, Nick, you did mention that their quarterback is a bit of a question mark. Um, I think Shanahan does a good job of sort of protecting that. He did it with Garoppolo. And I think Purdy is a little better than Garoppolo, to be honest. So I do have the Niners winning it all against the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, for my predictions for the AFC Championship game, I have Cincinnati playing Kansas City for the trilogy, the third year in a row in Kansas City. And I think Cincinnati comes out on top. Your take for the Chiefs not having any receivers, I think is a little far-fetched. I mean, we're forgetting Travis Kelce was out last night. But
Tight
I
end.
mean, they won the Super Bowl last year with pretty much the same receiving core. But I think that I think the Chiefs defending the Super Bowl from last year is very difficult. So I think the Bengals are going to win, and they're going to get revenge on the Chiefs after what happened last year with Joseph Asai and the late penalty and the horrible the refs being trashed that game. Obviously not the sole reason they lost. They had a bunch of mistakes, and Joe Burrow played horribly in the fourth quarter. But I think that they get revenge. From the NFC, I have the 49ers beating my Giants. I know Giants going to the NFC Championship is a little biased. I will admit it. But just the way that my bracket worked out, I had the Giants against the Saints in round one. And in my opinion, I think the Giants would win that for sure, just based off of my prediction of the Saints. And then I had them going against Philly again. And I feel like if the Giants played the Eagles again, especially if they win the first two games in the regular season, I feel like we could win that game. Obviously, I know I could see why people would say I'm an idiot, I'm biased. I truly believe that the Giants could stack, or I think they do stack up better against Philly this year, much more than they did last year. But then I don't really see them beating Philly and San Francisco in a playoff run. I think it ends there. For my Super Bowl, I have the Bengals beating the 49ers. I think the 49ers roster will single-handedly get them there if they stay healthy. But my main issue with the 49ers is at quarterback. Look, Brock Purdy's a solid quarterback, but he's never going to be a star. And when you're in a game like the Super Bowl, you need your quarterback to make a lot of good plays. I think that he's going to be a good game manager. That's all they need out of him. But I think Cincinnati will have the edge over San Francisco because Joe Burrow is their quarterback. I know he's been a little dicey at the end of playoff games recently, but I trust if I had Joe Burrow and Brock Purdy in the Super Bowl, I would 100% trust Joe Burrow a lot more than Brock Purdy. But I think it'll be a close game, and I think the Bengals will win the Super Bowl. So that is going to wrap up our first podcast of the semester. Jayden, Jackson, shout out to you guys for your time and your effort. And thank you guys for watching. So be on the lookout for future podcasts. Probably going to be doing one soon for the MLB postseason. So be on the lookout for that. Make sure you check out all of our broadcasts as well. So yeah, take care.